we are live. So welcome everybody to HR Insights. And again, if you could please take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat, your name, your department, and what are you having for lunch today? My name is RJ Vega. I am with the Human Resources Department. I am the Culture and Organizational Development Manager. So I'll be your technology host for today's session. So glad you all could join us. And again, you'll be hearing a lot of information today, but it's also going to be an interactive session. So we are excited to get some engagement in the chat. So again, locate the chat at the top of your menu of options and feel free to introduce yourself on the chat utilizing the chat function. You can do your name, department, and what are you having for lunch today? So as we're getting things started, I'll give you a quick moment, name, department, and what you're having for lunch. If there's anyone else who's viewing with you, if you by chance have a coworker who's also next to you viewing this session, please feel free to introduce them as well so we can know who else is in the room. And we got a couple more folks logging in, so we'll let the sound and everything get connected.
Snack bar and a cough drop. PB&J.
PB&J. Welcome, everybody.
Pickle soup. Ooh.
It's a lot of no lunches. They might be waiting for me. Like I'm waiting till after too.
Danielle said Chipotle, I think, right? She wins.
Ooh, that sounds good.
I know it does sound good.
I didn't want to be eating while talking to everybody, so.
You didn't want him to hear you crunching?
No. Don't want them to hear my leftover Chinese food.
Ooh, that sounds good too.
Mm.
You guys all have exciting lunches.
Well, I, for the moment, do not have a lunch, so I will be feasting on the knowledge that our friends are about to serve up here.
I like
Well,
that.
thank
Good,
you.
RJ.
I've been preparing for this lunch and learn for weeks now, so.
He'll be here all
Feed
week,
your
folks.
brain.
Oh, welcome everybody. So yeah, let's get started and start talking about FMLA. And so with that said, you know, you keep the chat responses coming and feel free to, if you have a question, utilize the chat function as well. But our topic today is FMLA. And because employee leave rights, they can be difficult to navigate. So our HR risk management team is joining us today here for our first ever HR Insights Lunch and Learn. And they're going to help us make sense of this topic. So I'd like to invite our presenters to introduce themselves and share a little background. Beth, would you like to get us started?
I would love to. So welcome everybody. Who knew there was this much interest in FMLA? So I'm glad you are all here. So if you have not yet met me or emailed me, I am Beth Olson, the Employee Leave Benefits Manager here at the City of Lincoln. We also work with several county employees, or we work with county employees. Our job is to work with the employee leave benefits. And so a lot of that ties into FMLA. We get a lot of questions, so we thought this may help. I have worked in human resources for over 20 years. So I bring some experience to putting all of these puzzle pieces together. Sarah?
Yeah, so I am Sarah Kroll. I'm the Risk Management Division Leader. And this is just some of the aspects that we oversee within risk management, along with some of the other fun stuff with safety and our insurance. So I am going to let Beth and Monty, who will introduce herself next, take the lead on this training session, but I'm always here to help and answer any questions anybody may have.
Hi, everyone. I am Monty Hoffpar. I recognize many of your names. I know I've emailed a lot of you. I am the Employee Leave Benefits Specialist, so I work hand in hand with Beth. So we work on all the FMLA claims and applications. I have also worked in HR, not for 20 years, but I did have experience at a hotel downtown Omaha where I worked in FMLA and other aspects of HR. So we will go ahead and just deep dive into FMLA. So we're going to work on the foundation today and talk about exactly what FMLA is. But to start, we're going to ask you all, what is the most confusing thing to you about FMLA? So we will have a poll come up and go ahead and answer what you think is the most confusing thing about FMLA. And you can also select more than one as well. We'll give you a couple minutes.
I should have submitted, I'm an expert.
Somebody did put I'm an expert, so.
Nice. So who are they? They
Interested
should
in
come
that.
help
Yeah,
us
I
out
don't know who
here.
that is. Come work with
Maybe it was
us.
Sarah.
Who qualifies? What situations? All right.
And stuff,
Keep it
scroll
in.
down next time.
Oh, it looks like we're about equal
Take a picture.
when it comes to some of the answers.
It is the same thing. Is it?
Fortunately, we'll be going over those.
All
right.
right. Are we?
Yeah, so it looks like the most confusing thing is, how does FMLA interact with paid leave and other benefits? And then tied with that is also, what situations are covered by FMLA? And luckily, we are going to be going over all of that today with you guys. So hopefully we get those questions answered for you. Okay. So what is FMLA? FMLA is the Family Medical Leave Act. It's a federal law providing protection for eligible employees up to 12 weeks of unpaid job protected leave per year. So FMLA on its own is not a paid leave. So it goes hand in hand with paid leave or unpaid. Employer policies determine leave use in conjunction with FMLA. And we know a lot of this has been confusing. As of January 2023, the city and county updated their policies on FMLA. And then the main thing for us is timely communication and accurate documentation is key. So it's just working together with the employee as well as the department and the risk team to make sure we have everything we need to know in order to help the employee as well as the department prepare for that leave.
All right. Come on, slide. There we go. So FMLA works concurrently with employee paid leave banks. When an employee takes time off for an FMLA qualifying medical reason, personal leave banks, injury leave, workers' comp, or paid parental leave are used to pay the employee. Or if all of those are exhausted, then leave without pay or absence without pay, whichever term you use in your department. Those absences are then used along with FMLA, which protects that leave to take for those qualifying events. One of the most frequent questions we get since I've been here is, why do I have to use FMLA if I have my personal leave banks? So FMLA protected leave is a federal entitlement. Once we as an employer, and this means the supervisor or the department, are notified of a potentially qualifying FMLA event, then we are obligated to make sure that we're designating it appropriately. We don't get to pick and choose which events we want to be FMLA. It either applies or it doesn't apply under the law. So that's where we kind of come in. If you have questions, reach out to us and we will work with helping to determine that.
And speaking of lunch and learn, we use a food analogy for FMLA. So what we like to think of FMLA is like an ice cream sundae, where each scoop of ice cream is a different paid leave. So your vanilla is sick, chocolate is vacation, strawberries paid, your personal convenience holidays, and then cookies and cream might be leave without pay. You have sprinkles on top of all those ice cream scoops. So every bite you take, those sprinkles are also FMLA. So every leave bank you're utilizing, you're also having FMLA in that bite. So once you run out of all those flavors that are paid leave, that's when leave without pay would be the next scoop of ice cream. And then once the sprinkles are gone, we can then look into having a leave request under the Americans with Disabilities Act, otherwise known as the ADA, which we will be having another lunch and learn on later this year.
So come on back. All right. So these are the criteria as spelled out under the Family Medical Leave Act for who qualifies. Employees who, worked for the same covered employer for at least 12 months, have physically worked a minimum of 1,250 hours in the last 12 months, and work at a location where the employer has at least 50 employees within 75 miles. Obviously, the city and county both qualify for that last one.
So again, to reiterate, 1,250 hours regardless of the position, and that's working hours, and that equals about 24 hours per week. And then the hours are prorated based on regular hours worked, whether that's 35, 40, or 56 hours. So now that we've gone over who qualifies for FMLA, we have some example questions to see if this person would qualify for FMLA. So Roberto is an on-call individual who has worked approximately 24 hours per week every week, which has totaled 1,344 hours in the past 12 months. So in the chat, let us know if Roberto is qualified for FMLA. And then to help out, the top tells you some of the qualifications.
What do you guys think?
Amy was on it. She already answered.
This person's on call. What do you all think?
Then Amber.
Let's assume they work for the city or county. All right.
It looks like we've got quite a few yeses, which is correct. So Roberto is eligible because even though he's on call, he has worked 1,344 hours, which is over that 1,250.
And we've actually had one or two of these come up. So second one or next one. Frank is a full-time employee who has been out with several illnesses over the past year. He is requesting FMLA again. He was paid for 2,080 hours over the past year, including overtime. When you take out all the absences, holidays, and work comp, he physically worked 956 hours. Does Frank qualify for FMLA? What do you guys think? We got a couple of no's. Looks like everybody's jumping on the no train.
Oh, someone yelled it. No.
All right. Well, we got a yes in there. So Frank is full-time. However, since he physically only worked 956 hours in the last 12 months, Frank does not qualify for FMLA. There may be some other protections and things that we can consider, but FMLA does not count in this instance. All right.
All right. And then our third example is Juanita started working for the city as a seasonal employee at 10 hours per week, which she did for about 4 months. An opening came up in a different department within the city. She applied and was hired on as a full-time employee 9 months ago. So if she was seasonal and then applied for full-time underneath the same employer, does she qualify?
We've got a mix here. Did we throw a stumper out there? All right, Monty, what's our...
So she does qualify. So even though she was seasonal and then moved to full-time, she still had the working hours.
If you
And
add
that
up the
was
hours,
because they worked for the same employer. And they met that hour requirement within that year. So if Juanita had been a seasonal worker with Campbell's Nursery and then came to work for the city, no, she wouldn't have enough tenure with us and she wouldn't have enough hours worked. So sometimes we have to look at a combination of the tenure or their longevity with the employer, which doesn't matter for their status, whether they're temp, seasonal, on-call, full-time, part-time. And then the number of hours worked. And we know that can get confusing, which is why we do a lot of math, which Monty loves, don't you?
I do love math.
we do more math than I thought we would.
Yeah.
Okay, so we reviewed a few scenarios. I think we're starting to get more comfortable. You guys are doing good with knowing some of these things. We're going to keep building on this. So FMLA protects leave to care for legal spouse. We did have a situation where significant other was having a baby, but that the bonding with the baby counted, but leave for the significant other did not because they were not legally a spouse. Parents, biological adoptive step does not count in-laws. Children under 18, obviously your minors, biological, foster, adopted, children that you're taking care of in your home. Children over 18, we've also had some siblings count under this. They're incapable of self-care due to some kind of mental or physical disability, may qualify. And then in loco parentis, if someone is standing in the role of a parent, although they're not maybe related or biologically related to the child, they're not legal, those kinds of things, there may be someone who qualifies under that in loco parentis. All right, any questions on any of that so far? Okay. All right, I'll just keep moving. Types of leave. We have several types of leave that we do. Am I jumping ahead? Hang on. All right, Monty, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, so there's types
Jumping
of
ahead of
leave.
myself. I'm so excited to talk about this.
We have continuous leave, intermittent leave, and reduced scheduled leave. So a lot of times for continuous leave, that's if we know someone is going to have a surgery, let's say in June, and they need time off until August for recovery. That would be considered continuous. Intermittent is when someone might have random appointments for like physical therapy or mental health therapy needs, and then just regular chronic condition doctor follow-ups where it might be an appointment 1 week, 2 appointments in 1 month is just intermittent. And then reduced scheduled leave is fewer hours. That's exactly what it is. These can also all work together. So sometimes we have a combination use, which is continuous leave and intermittent. So someone might be off for 2 weeks because they needed that time off for a self-injury or something, and then they have to have physical therapy to get stronger. So then that'd be continuous and intermittent. And it always helps if the employee lets us know and lets the department know what type of use it's going to be. So then that way the department is able to schedule appropriately.
I would also note that the reduced schedule leave under FMLA is where if people are limited for overtime, that has been a big one that has come up for us recently. So that's where that hits.
So then next, we're going to talk about what leave events may FMLA be used for. So go ahead and in the chat, put what you think type of events can be used for FMLA, what makes them eligible.
Or maybe like what reasons?
Well, we got 2 of the same.
Okay, interesting.
Wow, you guys
Actually,
are coming in
I
hot.
saw bereavement. Bereavement, even though I've been using that word a lot this week, bereavement is actually not included under one of the FMLA reasons. So, but that's a good guess.
All right,
All right.
so
You ready, Monty?
yep, I'm gonna just kind of, okay, yes, and then I'll go to the chat. So it's a serious injury or illness, adding a child to a family, and qualifying exigency military caregiver. So with some of the chat answers, I saw one that said like mother, father, sister, brother, spouse will go into which family members are qualified underneath FMLA. Some of those are not. And then hospitalization. Yep. So those are, a lot of you already have some good answers. So we'll move on to see what Beth has to say.
I noticed, Ben, you have COVID.
Mhm.
COVID is not qualifying for FMLA unless you have been hospitalized due to it.
Or if you have continuing medical treatments, that now you have a chronic condition because of
Correct.
that.
Yep.
Good guesses. You guys are doing great. All right. Well, I'm going to break down serious injury or illness a little bit. So anything that has treatment from a physician where a physician finds a person is unable to attend their job or school. And that can be things, these are under the guidelines, 1 overnight stay in a medical facility, so an overnight hospitalization, more than 3 calendar days for the same medical condition with ongoing treatment. Usually there's a prescription involved, so that doesn't mean that I go in for a checkup once a year, or just because someone's out 3 days doesn't necessarily automatically mean that it's FMLA. Sometimes people have chronic conditions and they're seeking a diagnosis. That is covered under FMLA as well because we don't know what it is, and it could be a chronic condition. So they have to see their physician at least twice a year. And for these things, we're thinking migraines. They might be off work more often, but they don't have to go to their doctor necessarily every time there's a migraine. Some of you were right with your guesses with cancer and cancer treatments, physical therapy. Mental health has been a bigger reason that we've seen come across our office lately. And in a world where some of us are in what they call the sandwich generation, if you all know what I'm talking about, between caring for our parents on one end and our children on the other end, FMLA covers care we may need to provide for those relationships that we discussed a little earlier in the presentation, if they have a serious injury or illness. Now, that's not the same. We have some people who use FMLA in timekeeping when they have a sick kid for a day. That is not at the level of FMLA. That's where we kind of keep an eye on some of those things and work. When we do see something that might meet FMLA, we'll send you out an email and say, hey, we're just checking in and want to see what this means. If it's not treated by a physician and it's more than over the counter, you probably want to reach out and get a hold of us. I was going to make a note too that, you know, if you're homesick with your kids for 3 days, if you're like me, most of us are ready for our kids to go back to school. Speaking of kids.
So the second reason would be adding a child to the family. So employees are able to use FMLA for bonding with their new child, whether it's a birth of a baby, fostering the child or children, or adoption of the child or children. So the employee gets up to 12 weeks of leave for bonding and parental responsibilities up until the first anniversary of that qualifying event. So that's either the birth of the child or for fostering and adopting purposes. It's once that employee knows they're getting a specific child and now has to start going to those meetings for that specific child for the fostering or adopting.
So starting January 1, 2023, actually, I think it was
Beth and
April.
Monty?
Say what?
Sorry to interrupt. There was a question in the chat just regarding that Monty, what you're speaking to, that is not paid leave, just leave. Correct?
It is paid leave if they have leave available, paid leave available. Otherwise, it is unpaid. So again, we like to have FMLA work concurrently with leave paid using their like sick leave, etc. Yes, so they'll use their sick or their vacation or their personal convenience holidays, and then it would go into unpaid.
Yeah, all FMLA leave anywhere you go is unpaid. You have the choice, or well, not the choice, but you have the ability to make it paid. And you do that by utilizing your accrued leave banks. So in order to get paid while you're on FMLA, you have to utilize your vacation, sick leave, personal convenience, holidays, paid parental leave, etc.
So
And speaking of paid parental leave, that was our next, if it is a birth, adoption, or a fostering situation in April of 23, the city and county started passing 6 weeks of paid leave up to the first birthday. So then you would use that first before your personal leave banks. So PPL starts with an actual birth or with the actual foster adopting of a specific child. For the city, this is all employees except for seasonal, temporary, or on call. And then for the county, as long as the bargaining unit has adopted PPL, otherwise it's all unrepresented employees. Probationary, seasonal, temporary, and on-call statuses are not eligible for PPL at this time, although they are still eligible for FMLA and bonding for those situations. And as we've said, PPL is in conjunction or works with FMLA. So this is just another flavor of ice cream with the sprinkles on top. And if an employee is not eligible for FMLA, then you just don't get the sprinkles. Protected family leave, we're just layering this for you guys. So protected family leave, I know has been very confusing. This is similar to FMLA. However, under FMLA, parents who work for the same employer have to share that 12 weeks of FMLA leave. We have several employees across some same departments, a lot of different departments who both work for the city or both work for the county. PFL was adopted to provide the full 12 weeks to each parent instead of them having to share that 12 weeks of FMLA. So I think that's a pretty cool benefit that's been offered. All 12 weeks of FMLA have to be used first. There are a couple of little rules and caveats. In using FMLA and PFL, like I said, they're very similar. Think of the sprinkles. There are a few structures. Like I said, all 12 weeks must be used first. Each employee is eligible for up to 12 weeks in a 12-month period of that protected leave. So we've had employees talk before about, well, can I just not use mine and give it to my spouse? You can't do that. It's 12 each, kind of a use it or lose it. And then if in doubt, time should be coded as FMLA, and then we will figure out and fix out to make sure the protected family leave is coded correctly. That is often confused with protected family leave. Sometimes I think people think my kid is sick, I'm taking them to the doctor. That's protected family leave. But protected family leave is really expanding that FMLA for the bonding and birth, adoption, and fostering situations. So we have a little example to help see how these three things work together. Let's assume in this slide here that both parents, birthing parent and partner, are taking the first 6 weeks of leave to bond with the baby, and they are going to be using FMLA. So that's pretty clear, right? PPL with FMLA for partner 1 and PPL with FMLA for partner 2. So now we're getting into week 7. The birthing parent, partner 1, is going to take an additional 6 weeks with their personal leave banks now. And since we used the 12 weeks of FMLA, we're switching to protected family leave. Now, the birthing parent goes back to work. Up until the first birthday, that second partner would still have 6 weeks of personal leave banks along with 6 weeks of PFL to continue to use until that time frame. So hopefully that kind of shows and makes a little bit of sense to see how that works in that example. So hopefully that's helpful.
And then the third is the FMLA military leave, which employees may use the leave for qualifying exigency, which is preparing for a spouse or family member's deployment. And that can include childcare arrangements, ceremonials and briefings, rest and recuperation leave, just preparing for that loved one to be deployed. And then military caregiver leave, which is caring for an active or veteran family service member injured in the line of duty.
To be honest, we don't have a lot of those, but it is an opportunity that's out there.
So when it does come
All
up,
right.
talk to us.
And Shannon had a question in the chat. So she asked if paid parental leave comes out of the employee's sick leave or it's a totally separate leave bank. And that is a totally separate leave bank. It's a brand new ice cream flavor. So it is a different type of leave. And then her next question is, so people with newborns get more leave time than other employees. So if you're one of those qualifying members who has a newborn or you're adopting, bringing a new child into your family, you are eligible for that new ice cream flavor of leave. You do get that 6 weeks. Now, whether or not that's more leave time than other employees obviously depends on your personal banks and the leave times that you already have built up.
All right. Well, that's been a lot of information, very helpful information. I appreciate helping clarify some of the more complicated parts of that. But let's see how everybody's doing. We got a couple questions here. Let's start off with one, and I'm going to launch a quiz, and I want to hear from you all who are listening in what you think the response is. So we'll launch that, and yeah, please select the correct response to which of the following is not true about FMLA.
And Shannon, we get that sentiment quite a bit. But we're just happy that we have it now and that we can utilize it moving forward to make things better.
There's always an initial starting date for things somewhere, and it's a great benefit. It's got to start somewhere.
Amy says, can you explain the 3-day gone on sick in reporting FMLA? Say someone has the flu and is gone 5 days.
Yeah, so if they're gone for 3 days, that is generally not FMLA automatically unless it meets some of the other criteria. So you're looking for, are they under the treatment of a physician? Was there more than over-the-counter medication prescribed? That can get into some other, when can we ask for doctor's notes and all of those, which is a whole different topic in PowerPoint. But if we're talking strictly FMLA, unless there's treatment by a physician or it meets some of the other tests under FMLA, it may or may not be FMLA. Sorry if that's a clear answer. So call us.
Yes. Yeah. So usually in those situations, if you're not sure and you know that someone's been out for 3 days to the flu, 5 days, just give us a shout out and we'll help determine whether or not they qualify under FMLA. Sometimes the flu turns into something more serious and they do end up qualifying for FMLA. Sometimes they get, hospitalized or they're visiting with their doctor more than once during that time, and then that would allow them to qualify for FMLA.
Sometimes it's just the flu. Does the supervisor notify us or does HR run a report? A little bit of both. And that's coming up. You're jumping ahead of us, Amy. That's so frequently asked question that I knew was going to be involved. Did we still have a poll, RJ?
Yep, so we got the quiz, and I appreciate all the responses, and it looks like coming in at 91%, the answer of which is not true about FMLA is that an employee can choose to use up all other available leave before they use FMLA.
Good job, everyone. Sounds like
Yeah.
most of you knew that, so that's good. Okay.
Good job.
Okay.
And we got one more for you. Let me get that launched and see where everybody's heads are at. We're going to pose a question here. Employees may use FMLA for, and then please select all that apply.
Those are kind of tricky. I know we practiced, but I don't remember reading all of them the same way as when you're live.
And like adoption of a child's coming in at 29%. Chronic condition requires treatment by a physician twice a year. But yeah, submit your answers.
You guys are doing pretty good. I don't know. Maybe they could come do this. They can come in and take over our jobs. Although I don't know if a trade would be fair with some of you.
Okay.
All righty, friends. How do you think they're doing? Looks like the highest scoring one was adoption.
Yep, so adoption is correct, and then if you put preparing for a spouse or family member's military deployment's correct. The chronic condition that requires treatment by a physician at least twice a year is correct, and then 1 overnight stay in a medical facility is correct. So that you guys did very well again, so good job.
Last one I have for the group here, and this will be a true or false. Please respond accordingly.
We're gonna get 100%. We got 100%.
So far.
We have a well-trained group.
Oh.
I read that. Oh.
Oh,
Ooh,
Okay, we got some other
that's
discussion, so hopefully we've learned a few things as we've gone on this today.
making me scratch my head. I had to read through that carefully.
Yeah,
then it keeps like moving too. So
I know.
Very
Okay,
good.
so for birth, adoption, foster, paid parental leave, if you qualify for that, must be used before personal leave banks. That's written in the policy so that that benefit gets fully taken advantage of.
so it is true.
All right, thanks, RJ.
Mhm.
So we're going to slide right into responsibilities and processes. We're winding down. So it's time to talk about how we all fit in, and maybe Amy will answer some of your questions that you had, what everybody's responsibilities and where some of those are. So I want to start just talking a little bit by, like, there's no I in team, there's no I in FMLA. So this is a team effort between the employee, the department supervisor, and risk. You know, the employee, we'll get into all the details of those things, but it's a team effort. We copy the supervisor listed in Oracle on all communication. So our hope is that everybody knows what's going on. We also are very careful about not violating privacy rights. So we'll include those who need to be included on a need to know basis. But most of the FMLA documentation and paperwork is asking for things like, does this meet one of these qualifications? How long will a person be out? We're not necessarily needing a specific diagnosis or all the medical notes. Sometimes those are provided, but we don't necessarily need all of those. If anyone has concerns, they're able to send those directly to the risk team. We are kind of a third party neutral person where we're not in charge of anybody's schedule or performance or any of those things. So if that comes directly to us, if someone is concerned about that, then we can share the information that the department needs to know with them as needed. And to spell some of that out, we created this little chart of starting with supervisor responsibilities. Their responsibilities, or the supervisor in the department, to ensure that leave is designated appropriately. So making sure that risk is notified somewhere in there so we can get the required forms and take care of the things that are legally needing to be taken care of. Instruct the employees to submit a request, or if they need to, they complete the request on the employee's behalf. Make sure time is coded. So when you are approving your employee's time, or if you're entering, some departments enter it in for the employee, make sure that we're entering that in accurately. Allow the employee to take approved time. We've had some discussions on that about, well, when this person has migraines, it's really hard to let them off when they need to. If it's an FMLA protected medical event, we need to allow employees to take the time that they need to heal and recover. There are some things, but we'll get to that. Communicate with risk and the employee during the leave. If you are aware and find out something that's changed or updated, please reach out and make sure that we know or let us know. And then following up with risk or the HR business partner if there are questions on performance or attendance.
No,
Did somebody return to work? Do we
All right,
have all
bye.
the documentation? Are there any follow-up appointments? Those are some of the supervisor's responsibilities. Employees' biggest responsibility is to communicate, let us know what's going on. It is best if they complete the request themselves because they can add notes in as they feel a need, or they are just better prepared to answer some of those questions with dates and that kind of thing. Employees have the responsibility to provide notices, certifications, updates. If we have a request, make sure that you're communicating those responses. Use leave for its intended purposes, for healing and recovery or caring for medical situations for family. There are times where people take advantage of those things. So just make sure we're being respectful and using the leave for what it's intended. Notify the department for intermittent leave. We've had a struggle with employees calling, say, 3 hours late for their shift and saying, oh, I'm taking FMLA. That is still not acceptable for calling and procedures until we know it's FMLA. it's not protected leave. And then the leave is protected, but there may be some discussions on reaching out and contacting the department timely. Employees have a responsibility to work with departments to minimize their disruptions. If you're doing regular physical therapy, can that be done before work, after work, on a lunch break? Can we try to not, like, I wouldn't have wanted to schedule an appointment during this meeting. I don't know that Monty and Sarah would have been very pleased had I done that. Try to minimize disruptions as much as you can for the department. And then we would really ask that when you fill out the request that you provide information that we can reach you at while you are on leave. If you're providing your work email address and phone number, if you're not checking or able to check those while you're on leave, it's really difficult sometimes to get a hold of employees if their information has changed from Oracle. So hopefully that helps with what our roles are.
So then
And
with the
I will add up to
Oh,
Amy's
Sarah had a thing.
to circle back to Amy's original question about whether or not we pull reports or it's the supervisor's responsibility. So we, as Beth said, we work as a team. You folks, we rely on you because you know your departments, you know your employees. We rely on the supervisors to let us know if something's going on that we may need to reach out to an employee about to circle back with them. We do run reports and we check those and we sort of cross-reference them. But as you are all aware, sometimes things get missed. So we do truly rely on supervisors in the departments to give us a heads up or at least be our initial pipeline in there as opposed to, and being proactive as opposed to being reactive and looking at those reports when we're cross-referencing. And we
So-
currently have 272 open FMLA cases across the city and county. So just to give you an idea of the volume of the FMLA cases that we are helping people work through on our team of 3 people. So
We also have
definitely
some-
need your help.
We also have some ADA leave cases, so that's in addition to that. So there's a lot that comes through our department on a daily basis. So any help you can provide is amazing.
So we're going to
Okay,
talk
Mom.
about the approval process for FMLA. So it starts with the FMLA request submitted to risk, which whether that be origami or sometimes we still get an email application. Risk follows up with the employee and the supervisor that is listed in Oracle. FMLA allows 3 days for the employer to send notices, and that is the risk team sending the notices, the rights and responsibilities. And then the employee or physician has 15 days to send back the medical certification that we send as well. Then the request should be closed. Should be coded as FMLA on time cards as soon as notices are received. So you'll receive the email from us and it will let you know to go ahead and code it and we'll send you instructions. And then once medical documentations are received, risk sends out the official designation to let you know if it's continuous, intermittent, whatever it might be. And then the final is update risk with changes or if you have a full return to work. And we'll dive into each process a little bit more here. But we do have some questions as well. Shannon said, I thought there was a law that prevented supervisors or people from asking what is wrong with you when you take sick leave. So that's when we were talking about having risk involved. Technically, for HIPAA purposes, a supervisor cannot ask an employee, but with the medical certification that gets directed straight to risk, unless the employee gives it to you. If the employee gives it to you, they're willing to share it. But otherwise, we get the medical documentation of what is going on, and the information that the department receives is not anything to do with what they're sick with.
A department can ask, is this related to FMLA? Because they have to know if they should code it FMLA or not. And a department can ask some questions. We just are not able to ask, what is your diagnosis
Mhm.
and what is your, things along those lines with your personal information. But they can ask some questions to clarify, to make sure that the time card is coded correctly, and some of those kinds of things. And then, if risk works with the division manager, our
Carla's,
best.
to Carla's
Go ahead.
question, yeah. So one of the things that we have really been trying to utilize is Oracle. And then in the emergency management world, which is some of my background, is that chain of command, right? So what we're looking for in our employee structure in an Oracle, which is why folks need to make sure that's up to date and current because that's our system of record, is that we do have that frontline supervisor. And that's who we communicate with because that's who that employee should be working with. We do have some other departments and designees where we do include the HR reps and some of the admins upon some of those different requests in different situations. But ultimately, we usually start with that direct supervisor listed in Oracle for that purpose because they are the ones who know that employee and are supposedly supposed to be working directly with them. So if they need to elevate that up their chain or down in some other way, that supervisor is more than welcome to do that and help out in that way. But we have had great success with our direct line supervisors.
And Angela, we will discuss ADA is probably just as broad a topic as FMLA. So we're going to be crunched for time and we're going to wait until we do that lunch and learn to go into the ADA. And Shelley, absences should be coded in absences, not just on the time card, correct? And then on FMLA, Angela, if they are on FMLA and injury leave, with workers' compensation, we can ask for all of the medical on those because we are covering the workers' compensation and taking care of those bills. Vacation and sick time do accrue during FMLA and PPL. If you're getting into FMLA
As long
exhausting,
as you're in a paid status.
If you're unpaid,
as long as
you
you're
don't
getting
get the
paid.
Yeah, if
Yep.
you are on FMLA while you're utilizing leave without pay or AWAP, as some of the other departments call it, whatever terminology your division is utilizing, as long as you are utilizing paid leave, your other leave banks will still accrue while you're out.
Correct. And then if you need more time than the 12 weeks allows for, that's generally when we'll start looking into an ADA accommodation and you can reach out to us at that point. Personal convenience holiday. If you can't use FMLA as a reason code, which we're looking at adjusting those, putting it in the comments is very helpful so that we can make sure that we're tracking that accurately. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Go ahead and keep your questions coming and we'll get to those as we can. So FMLA requests are submitted to risk. The number one preferred way is for the employee to submit the request through the claims link. Department may submit on behalf of an employee if an employee ends up in the emergency room late the night before and they're not able to complete it. Just make sure that you are getting that notification to the risk department and starting that process in some way, whether it's the link or whether it's emailing risk@lincoln.ne.gov. Employees do not have to say the words FMLA or I want to request FMLA. It's simple enough to say, hey, I'm having surgery next month. Start and end dates on the FMLA request forms. Those are estimates, anticipated dates. So sometimes the baby may come early or later or surgery got moved. That's okay. Still get those requests in to get those on our radar so that we're prepared and ready to follow up on those and make sure that we're meeting all of the requirements.
All right, and then step 2, risk follows up with the employee and supervisor. Rights and responsibilities forms are sent out. That is for the employee to keep as well as the department if you wish to. The medical certification form for themselves or their family member and the position description are to be sent to the physician. So that is what the physician is supposed to complete, and the position description is also included so the physician knows what exactly the essential functions are for that employee and what they can and cannot do when they are returned to work. And then instructions to code time in Oracle, that is also sent with the rest of these documents, which that is for the employee to do for their time card unless someone in the department does it for all the employees, then that is for you to do. So you know how to do their time cards, because I know some departments, one designated person does all the time cards. I do want to point out for the medical certification form, we do have people who have more than one doctor. So sometimes they don't know who to give the medical certification to. We recommend giving it to the primary physician strictly because usually they're the ones who told that employee to go to the other doctors. So if they're confused about which doctor to go to, we always say the primary physician. And then on the rights and responsibilities, we've gotten questions about this where it says, are you a key employee? And we mark no. Some people don't like that, but that is strictly because we have people to cover for that employee typically if they're gone. It's more like if it was for a small business and like the owner was going to be gone, no one could really cover for that person. So that's not our language. That's the FMLA language saying the key employee. We think you guys are all key employees, but it's just FMLA is stating it specifically for that. And then the other one is also the leave banks. We put some of this FMLA leave may be unpaid. That doesn't mean that's going to happen specifically for you. It's just saying that it can happen, that you may have unpaid leave. So it's just that on the rights and responsibilities, we say paid leave must be used before unpaid, or some of your time off may be unpaid. So that's another thing that's just for the FMLA verbiage. That's why it's on there. And then for medical certification for the family, that'd be the spouse or the child's physician would complete that for the employee as well, then to send back to risk.
All right. FMLA allows 3 days for the employer to send notices. Once the request is submitted, we have up to 3 days to send those initial notices. And then we have to allow the employee 15 days under the FMLA law to return medical certification. Now, sometimes we get it back sooner, but sometimes departments are asking, and that is why sometimes we can get the return to work note back before we actually get the medical certification and send out the designation. That doesn't mean it's not FMLA. We still go ahead and code it FMLA. Just if something comes back and is not qualified under FMLA, then we might have to go back and change that. But otherwise, those are the timelines on that.
Requests should be coded FMLA on time cards as soon as notices are received. It's better for everyone if we code it as if it's FMLA and then change it later on if it's actually not, than doing retroactively. We can do retroactively, but it's just better to start assuming that it is FMLA and coding it that way so their hours start in the timely manner as it should be.
Let's put it this way, you all know about entering your time cards. It's much easier to assume that it is FMLA than to assume it's not in most cases. Once medical documentation is received, risk will send out the official designation. That's pretty simple. We'll send it to the employee and the supervisor listed in Oracle again. The employer has final decision on designating FMLA.
And then final is update risk with changes or if there's a full return to work. Typically, if we have a full return to work, the case gets closed. But if we know that you have a follow-up appointment, maybe 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, and you let us know that, we will keep that open because we know that it is for that FMLA qualifying event that you're already approved for. And then if you also exhaust those 12 weeks, that's another time when we start looking at the ADA and trying to see if we can do an accommodation for leave underneath that. Or if the employee decides not to come back to work or is unable to return to work due to their medical condition, that is another time when FMLA ends.
Okay, so we threw in here some frequently asked questions that we've addressed since we've been working here. One of the questions is, what is an FMLA year? It is 12 months. The city uses a rolling 12 months FMLA year, which means anytime you request FMLA, we're going to review and look back 12 months to see, was there any other FMLA events used, and whatever is left is what is available. Whereas the county uses a static year, and so if you started FMLA leave today, you would have until a year from now, potential by that date But if you had another event, for example, it would be within that same static year for the county. Whereas for the city, we would look back at the last 12 months to see what was used. What if I have a condition lasting longer than 12 months? That is where we can do periodic updates every 30 days to check where your leave is, and we can get into an ADA situation if we need to. There may be more than one FMLA event in an FMLA year. The 12 weeks is a total for a 12-month period. Let me make sure. And then, like I said, every 30 days, either the employee or we can ask for updated medical information, or the employee can ask where their status is with FMLA and check in on where that is. Performance issues unrelated to FMLA. Can an employee be disciplined or released while on FMLA? FMLA protects the leave that you're taking. As I talked about earlier, if someone calls in 2 hours late or 3 hours late, performance issues unrelated to FMLA are treated the same as if a person were not on FMLA. So if there's gross misconduct, or if someone is working intermittently, that work is still under the same performance standards as if the person were not on FMLA for that work time. Reach out to the HR business partner if you have questions about performance. And how do my benefits work while on FMLA? This has been a change for everyone as well. Your benefits continue as if you were not on leave, as if you were, benefits continue, let me word that better, sorry. Benefits continue as long as you are in a paid status and have your income coming out of your check. If you stop having any leave and don't have any paid leave in there, then payroll will notify you and reach out, and you will be responsible just for that same amount that you were paying out of your paycheck. Hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, payroll would reach out to let you know if there's any payments owed.
Then 2 ways to submit a request. Submit a request in the claims management system, which is Origami, which you guys are doing great at, or having your employees go there to submit requests. We still get some via email at the risk@lincoln.ne.gov, but it's very minimal. So thank you for doing our preferred system of Origami.
All right, and Shelley wants to just point out and emphasize that make sure you're coding FMLA in absences, as if it's on the time card, it might not show up on reports correctly. And we are crunching for time. We did a good job getting our timing on this for an hour. So our final thoughts are, every situation is a little bit different. Approvals are subject to different nuances in contracts or policies or situations. So the best suggestion that we give is, if you have any idea that it might be FMLA, reach out to one of our team. If you email that risk@lincoln.ne.gov, you will reach one of the 3 of us or all 3 of us. You only have to remember one email. You don't have to worry about who's out for the day. If someone is talking about a surgery, or they've missed more than 3 days for a medical situation, or any medical situation that seems out of the ordinary, this isn't like that person, or this isn't typical of most employees, reach out and give us a call and we can talk through those situations.
And then RJ did also submit the FMLA FAQ, the fact sheet that we have for our employees, in the chat as well. So feel free to download that as well.
And I tried to respond to the questions that were in the chat. So if you posted those up there, Shannon, there was one that was similar to Shannon's by Laura. So you guys asked similar questions. I replied to Shannon in there. Ben asked about retroactive, designating time retroactively as FMLA. Yes, we do that. We've done that. It kind of just depends on every situation. You know, as Beth and Monty said, every person is unique, right? So every event is unique and they are all treated that way. So there's no, unfortunately, I know people don't like that, that there's no concrete yes or no, or this is the way, right? as FMLA and HR, we're working with people and people are unique. And so everyone is treated that way. And we work with each case on an individual basis, all of 272 of you at the
That's
moment.
right.
And then as we were talking about ADA, just so everyone knows, at a future time, we will have an ADA lunch and learn. And then there were also talking about doing a work comp lunch and learn later this year as well. So 2 more fun things to go over with all of you.
Thank you all very much. Before you take off, everybody, put a survey link there in the chat. Please let us know how today's session went. We appreciate any and all feedback. Also want to uplift that we have other lunch and learns coming up, including for HR Insights. We have a June 11th and an October 8th sessions lined up, as well as in the intranet page, you can find the entire training calendar. So not only HR Insights, but other opportunities as well, including Elevate Your Impact. So again, that's on Human Resources on the intranet page. And really want to thank the HR Risk team for sharing their insights with us today.
And then there was just one more question. We had all leave, vacation, personal holiday, convenience holidays, and must be used before LWOP. Correct. All paid leave must be used before leave without pay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.